Welcome to Shardcast, the Brandon Sanderson podcast. We're a bunch of mega fans giving you the news, discussion, and of course, a whole lot of opinions about Brandon's works and the Cosmere. I'm Eric, and joining me is not Ian, because he is out of state right now and is upset that he couldn't be on. But joining me is the lovely and wonderful Alyx.
Hello, I'm FeatherWriter.
Also joining me is the Maple Syrups Consortium's top lawyer, Matt.
I'm Comatose on the forums, and I have no actual affiliation with the Maple Syrup Consortium.
Shut up.
Whatever that is.
Shut up. Also, and lastly, coming back after a very long time, is the Maple Syrup Consortium's top accountant, Shannon.
Hi, everybody. You know me as Gray or Graywatch on the forums and Discord.
And they're Canadian, so they're involved in the Maple Syrup Consortium, whether they think that or not. I was also gonna go with maybe Moose Consortium or something, you know. Yeah.
You can't really sell moose, but you can sell maple syrup. So
look, the Moose Consortium definitely sells moose.
We're never going to have Canadians listen to our show again. All of the Canadians are turn it off right now.
Hey, though, we're 50% Canadian representation.
That's
though,
right.
On the show.
That's
right.
true.
Lots
we do have pretty
Canadian
good rep.
representation. That's right. That's right. And I am Chaos, of course. This week, we are going to be keeping up with the Kholins. And we're going to talk about all of the many Kholins. It's a big family. And their relationships and our thoughts on that. And yeah. But first, we do have some news. There is a Legion pre-order sweepstakes, which for reasons that is not obvious to us, you could win a Lenovo Explorer mixed reality headset with motion controllers. Because I guess Legion is about reality. And so before September 18th, when Legion, the Legion anthology comes out, you can win that, potentially. Cool. I have no information and have never heard about this Lenovo product before. Sponsor us, Lenovo. So that's what's up there. So we got to keep up with Kholins. And there's been a lot of Kholin stuff happening ever since we, really get the Kholin stuff right in the prologue, really, with Gavilar's death. And especially in part 2 of Way of Kings, it's like, hey, I hope you like Kholins. And they have
so many
only grown in importance on the world stage. So let's talk about Gavilar. Gavilar Kholin. Who is he?
He's the guy who started it all.
Yeah.
That's all you gotta know. Okay, moving on.
Backstory guy.
He was the king, the previous king.
The original king. The guy who decided to become king.
It's all
at least in this modern incarnation of Alethkar.
Yeah.
Certainly. And yep, United Alethkar. We see more of that in Oathbringer. He's also saw visions from the Stormfather.
True.
And knows a lot about a lot of things.
Yeah.
And is
in the know.
He is a member of the Sons of Honor and increased their membership a lot because of his involvement. He's not the head of the Sons of Honor, though. Who we all know as great organization, top tier.
Wrong podcast. We've done that one.
No, we have.
No.
We've done a Secret Society podcast before, so you can listen to that here. But we're going to talk about their relationships. He's also very much of a planner.
Yeah.
And was
very
friends
ambitious.
with Thaddeus. Yes, very ambitious. What do you guys think of Gavilar? Just like thoughts on him, top level.
highly
I find
highly questionable.
there's this duality with him where he, like, in the flashbacks in Oathbringer, he's almost supposed to be better than Dalinar used to be, right? Like, Dalinar's like the brute and Gavilar's like the politician, right? But there's a lot under the surface there. I feel like I'm still very suspicious of Gavilar, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think we should all be suspicious of Gavilar after the more we see of the prologues. It's like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing here. All right.
Anyone who's like really gung-ho, throwing their weight in with the Sons of Honor, just some questionable judgment.
He had,
in my opinion,
spheres of probably void light.
So
Probably. How did he get void light? An unmade? Probably, right? Yeah. So I don't know. Like
And his master plan was supposedly to start a worldwide war with the forces of evil, so people could get superpowers again.
And bring the heralds back. That was important.
Bring the heralds back.
Return the legitimacy of the church.
The superpowers were just a nice bonus. Mostly bringing the heralds back.
But to go down the family tree, Gavilar was married to Navani, had 2 kids, Yasna and Elhokar.
Yes.
His brother is Dalinar, who also had 2 kids, Rosharan and Adolin. And Dalinar was married to Evie.
Yes.
Did I get everybody? Oh, and technically, Elhokar also got married to a suitor.
Oh.
And has a son.
Has a son. That's true. Gavilar. Also a
yes.
Well, and asterisk. Shallan technically also got married to a Kholin, but we're not talking about Shallan.
No. Well,
there's your caveat. She's not in it.
Too fresh.
But we recognize her right to some Kholinishness.
In the future.
Yeah.
Keeping up with the Kholins 2.0 in like 5 years, we will talk about.
You really need
Shallan
like a
Kholin.
family tree printed in the front of the book sometimes, I feel like it's so much. Except then how do you do Navani between like they're not great at
Lots
family
of
trees
lines.
either.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Are you allowed to have people twice? Or
you're a Kholin, I guess.
You're a Kholin. And with Dalinar, there was Dalinar and Gavilar. They did have this interesting relationship in the flashbacks, and that's really where we see their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Since Dalinar was passed out in most of the prologue.
Yeah, we didn't see much of him in The Way of Kings prologue, or any of the prologues. I don't think we're gonna get book 4 or 5 prologue of just 2 paragraphs of him being passed out. And then, oh, my brother is dead. I don't think that's gonna be one of them.
Yeah, probably not.
No. But there was one scene where Dalinar just tried to kill Gavilar.
Or he thought really hard about it.
He was like
almost did. He was like charging him, yeah.
Yeah.
He wasn't. He was getting there. I would say. I wasn't.
Yeah.
I'm going to say he did take a swing at him. You know,
that's true. The attack did not actually happen.
The 2 things I find interesting about that scene is, one, that, in the grips of the thrill, there's obviously, this little brother, older brother envy dynamic with Gavilar's power and also Navani, but that Dalinar's love or affection for Gavilar was enough to pull him out of it in the end before he went full brother murder.
Yeah.
It was such a moment of it was one of those moments where Dalinar first really sees himself. It's totally based on
wake up call.
It was a wake up call for him. This was the first time he realizes he ever would have regretted letting the thrill take over. And that was that was a bit in my mind, it wasn't the big break that the rift was, but it was the first crack. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Well, and that that moment too, just when it happens in his history, Dalinar's really in his prime there. He's still in his prime later, but then he's kind of moving towards general, more like tactician. He's still battling and being BA, but
he's
in that scene, he's really kind of at the height of his skill as a warrior.
Right.
Yeah.
I always thought it was interesting in Oathbringer how Gavilar seemed very he was very kingly and scholarly, like pretty early in the flashbacks.
Yeah.
Which is interesting to me because I always had the impression that Gavilar grew into that nature of himself like much later in his life. Like just thinking about, Yasna's autobiography or Yasna's biography of Gavilar, right? Where they're meeting the Parshendi for the first time and is like, oh, he grew to, think of those a little more later.
Well, there was I don't know about the scholarliness, but we know that he was starting to become like more self-reflective himself, like only when he had his kids.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that is
right.
true.
Like I don't know about like the scholarly, like maybe Dalinar, he got to see Gavilar before the kids, but Yasna got to see multiple stages of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
She already kind of knew Gavilar as this guy who was starting to think more about the future. He was starting to grow more about the future since he had his kids, and then it happened more and more with the Parshendi. But we also know there was more going on under the surface.
Yeah,
with the Parshendi, right? That Yasna might not have known at the time when she wrote the biography.
True.
I feel like I'm going to go a little bit into like headcanon territory slightly.
Okay,
but I feel like maybe part of the reason why Gavilar became more interested in kind of the scholarly things was that he saw it as not necessarily an avenue to power, because he was already a king, but like a means, like he was realizing there was so much that he could do with knowledge in terms of like, I mean, they were planning a world apocalypse and it was like, oh, if we figure out who and what the Parshendi are, we can use that to, sustain our legacy, to forge this kingdom together, all of that stuff. I feel like that was probably a lot of the motivation behind him slowly becoming more and more scholarly.
Well, like
wasn't very masculine.
Him becoming like more scholarly, also like we would naturally think of this trait as positive in like our society, like the way we read, but in terms of like why Gavilar was doing it, it was actually kind of regressive, wasn't it? He wasn't doing it for good reasons. He wasn't.
What I find interesting, I guess, about Gavilar's more intellectual side is I wonder how much that actually suppressed Dalinar's, because Dalinar, especially in the flashbacks, is presented as this brute, right? And even, in Oathbringer, he's always like, oh, I'm not good at politics. Oh, I'm just like a fighter. But like Dalinar's actually really smart. Like, if you read, like, how he, like, thinks about things, and he's very reflective and philosophical. So part of me, too, wonders if that...
At least.
Later in life, yeah. But he always had that potential, I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think, I kind of wonder how much of their brotherly dynamic kind of forced Dalinar more into that role. Because he saw, like, his brother was seen as, like, smarter. You know what I mean?
I think Dalinar definitely believed that, too. And, like, I think the reason we see Dalinar, like, acting on his own smarts later in life is because, like, that's, as, like, a 50-year-old man, he's finally, like, getting the confidence, like, I'm going to do this my own way. I can trust in my own ability. It took him that long to sort of, like, trust that even though he's not the same kind of thinker or the same kind of person as his brother, it's still worthwhile.
Yeah.
When he starts problem solving and, he thinks very outside the box, the way that he's going to start, when he starts talking to people and like, how can I get them to see from my point of view? He does it in a very unpolitic way. It's a very Dalinar way. It's very smart.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not the way Gavilar would have done it. And I think maybe that's why he tries so hard to be like Gavilar.
Yeah. I do definitely think that, Gavilar having claimed like, yes, I'm the kingly person, just allowed Dalinar to just be like, yeah, I'll just do whatever I want. Yeah, it's okay. I'll just be the brute. That's fine. I don't need to think about it anymore. He just points me there, and I just do that, right?
Yeah.
and there is kind of a comfort in that. But that, actually thinking about that, that's kind of a lot like Odium. That's like, I don't need to take my brother just sends me to do things, and I don't need to reflect on the morality of that. I'm just gonna do things.
I think Dalinar foisted a lot of responsibility onto Gavilar, definitely.
Yeah.
You know, like
Gavilar's
it's Gavilar's plan. Gavilar's doing this. I'm just the sword, right?
Yeah, and going with what you said, Alyx, about, you know, him being like using this, you know, Gavilar using this more analytical side of things to like increase his legacy. That's exactly what he was doing even long before the Parshendi.
Oh yeah.
I guess I was just surprised to see that, but when you say it like that, it's like, he was just growing those skills even more with the Parshendi, right? Because he always wanted to look back to old Alethkar to strengthen his rule and his legacy.
I think it probably started out very masculine arts. You know, I can use strategy and tactics and conquering people to secure legacy. And like, I feel like as he kind of got that under his belt and had that secure, it was like, okay, there's actually other things that I can research and learn how they work and keep using those to go even further. So like, I think it started masculine, and then as the masculine side worked, it kind of branched out into more, hey, the more you know, the better you're going to do.
Oh, and for the listeners, we're talking about the Alethi masculine and feminine.
Yes, Alethi masculine.
Distinctions, right?
Yeah.
In-world.
Yes, in-world. Should we talk about Gavilar and Navani?
Sure.
Yes.
I feel like we still, even after the flashbacks, we don't know that much about them. We've heard from Navani, but that was mostly before Oathbringer even.
I would say that might be not really a disappointment, but like if you were to list things that you would want in flashbacks, it's like, yeah, I'd love to know more about the relationship with Gavilar and Navani and Dalinar, but we got like none of that.
And especially since you see this intense connection that Navani and Dalinar have now.
Yeah.
And then you go back and it's like she chose Gavilar over Dalinar. So what kind of relationship did they have? And like all we really know is she said, oh, Dalinar, your intensity scared me. And that's why I chose Gavilar.
Yeah, we went like immediately.
Yeah, and we know
Gavilar and Navani being together.
Dalinar got cold because he wouldn't do that. But I'm wondering almost if the like inner family dynamic of like Gavilar, Navani, and the kids is going to be something we see more in Yasna's flashbacks.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
I'm guessing it was almost like saved for part of that.
Probably, because
we've been very closed off from that too. Like even interactions between like Navani and Yasna have been like pretty far and few between.
Very good, yeah.
Well, in fact, I think that entire part of the family, Gavilar, Navani, Elhokar, and Yasna, I think all four of them, we don't see much of their interactions at all.
Yeah.
True.
We kind of see what Navani says about it. We kind of see Dalinar's memory of it. But even in Dalinar's flashbacks, he's not paying attention to how they're interacting. At no point when they all have their kids, it doesn't seem to be important to, well, at least like Dalinar's growth, you know, so it's sort of like, I really do think there's something more going on there because there's such a lack of detail in that whole part of the family. All four of them.
Yeah.
We get way more of like the relationship between Dalinar and his sons, and then in Oathbringer, of course, we get the addition of Evie into the mix, but
it makes sense because Dalinar's alive and he's a main point of view character, so it makes sense that we get more development, but we have really very little idea how, like, Yasna's childhood went, and
Elhokar's childhood, how the siblings interacted, how they interacted with their parents, how they interacted as husband and wife. It's a big mystery.
Yeah.
There's a lot there with Yasna.
Getting into opinions, maybe, do we think that Gavilar and Navani's marriage was a marriage with love, or was it a calculated, like, strategy? Because we see them both as like conquerors in their own right. Like Navani is very adept at the political, you know?
Yeah.
So I kind of wonder.
I think it at least started with some affection. It was my take. I don't think it was completely one or the other. Yeah. I don't think it was very passionate, but I do think there was some level of, like, they must have gotten along on some level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think they probably felt some like kindred spirit in that whole idea of like strategy and taking down opponents and coming out on top. Because they both seem to have that a lot more than Dalinar does. He's not really the court manipulator who understands. No. Yeah, he doesn't do that at all. But Navani and Gavilar were both, we've seen they're both very good at it.
True.
And I think they seem to both love their kids.
Mm-hmm.
We saw like a teensy bit of Gavilar and Yasna in the prologue.
Mm-hmm.
And then Navani's unfortunately kind of distant from her kids, but it's not like she's a bad mom distant. It's just like Yasna's so independent and Elhokar is like in such a masculine role that his mom can't really help him with kingly stuff.
Yeah.
So,
right. Yeah, like at least in the text, there's not a lot of opportunity for Navani to like take any deep role with their kids in a way. Right?
Yeah, even though like she and Elhokar are like geographically in the same setting for most of the series, we don't get a ton of like scenes or connection between them because they're kind of doing their own things.
Do we get any scenes? Is my question? Because I don't think I remember any.
And I don't know if we want to talk about this later when we're talking about Navani's relationships. But
I want to save it. Yeah,
I have some stuff on that to say as well.
let's save it for Navani's section.
Yeah. So we have this word of Brandon asked by Alice, Wetlander, who asked in that same chapter with the wedding, the Stormfather says, "You've broken oaths before to Navani. Will we ever learn more about that?" Brandon said, "Probably." And that is a very interesting little line. So what do we think that means, like, broken with Gavilar?
Well, the Stormfather did say it. It was they were talking about wedding oaths. The Stormfather says, I mean, it's not like for sure. Like the Stormfather, he's just about oaths in general. It doesn't have to be about wedding oaths, but I think we can make that. We draw that link.
We do have
like contextually, it does seem like
Navani has said that she was never unfaithful to Gavilar.
Interesting.
In the Way of Kings. I was like, I thought I remember that quote.
Yeah.
But,
that's right.
I mean, I don't think she'd have reason to lie about that. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And I guess, like, oaths, like, what kind of oaths? Like, I guess she might have still broken an oath to Gavilar, and that might be why the Stormfather brings it up, but it might not have been like a, marital romantic
fidelity,
faithfulness. Yeah.
Well, what other kinds of, like, oaths do Alethi take?
I mean, it could have been something like keeping a secret from someone, or, maybe she was supposed to do something, a plan. Like, he seemed like the kind of person who used the people around him to do things, and I don't know. I mean, and it might not have even been with Gavilar.
Yeah,
the Stormfather doesn't necessarily seem to have an idea of, like, marital oaths versus other oaths. He could have been talking about,
like all oaths.
Any oaths she's ever had with anybody.
You said you would meet them at 10 o'clock and you came at 10:30.
Yeah, stuff like that. So
he's unbending. He's unbending.
Yes, very. Yes. I mean, but it makes sense. But certainly.
So
it's sort of like, I feel led to believe that it might be related to Gavilar and Navani, but like maybe in the sense that like a human, we wouldn't have considered it a broken oath, but the Stormfather might.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some humans take oaths very seriously. Any promises very seriously, but yeah.
Some do, but you know what I'm saying? Like, like the Stormfather not understanding like why the heralds broke their oaths.
Sure,
he had zero sympathy until he started like seeing it through Dalinar's eyes.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's the same sort of idea, like unfortunately, like humans break marital oaths all the time, and it's very sad, but it's sort of like we don't consider that necessarily an oath breaking. It's just we consider it just a sad thing. But the Stormfather might be like, well, that is true. That's terrible.
Like it doesn't have to be like Navani cheated on Gavilar to like maybe break your marriage oaths to like support your partner, right?
Yeah,
like you could like just do a small thing. And the Stormfather would be like, you needed to support that person and you didn't there or something, right?
Yeah.
Or even something as simple, like if your wedding oath is to, love someone for the rest of your life, maybe Navani stopped loving
True.
Gavilar.
Oh yeah,
That's true.
And the Stormfather's
with
like
the Stormfather's kind of black and white.
And
Yeah.
since we still haven't seen an Alethi wedding, we don't know.
I think that's that important. I don't know. I don't think it's that important to see that on screen. I
No,
never
I
thought.
mean,
we haven't heard what their normal oaths
We
are.
don't know what their oaths are. Was my
True.
point. I don't
True.
care about seeing Adolin and Shallan's wedding, but I'm just saying
Oh,
it would have been an example of oaths. An example of
this is true.
of what Gavilar and Navani might have sworn to each other. So
True.
Yeah.
Valid. Let's talk about Gavilar and Yasna.
Could we maybe talk about Gavilar and his kids together? Like with that?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah,
Let's do
yeah.
that. Yeah. Let's do that. Yeah, let's talk about Yasna and Elhokar and Gavilar's relationship, which we really don't know too much.
Mm-mm.
Really,
Yeah.
it's
A
all
lot less
again
for
all
Elhokar.
secondhand.
Yeah.
A lot less for Elhokar,
Which is
true.
shocking because he's, the prince trying to new king, trying to live up to the old legacy. Usually
And
you get
I think
a
you can-
lot of stuff,
Yeah.
but we don't really have it.
I think you can surmise some things from Elhokar's behavior and like his behavior, just how he is always trying to live up to his father and he feels very inferior. That kind of tells you something of their relationship, that he at least thought well of Gavilar.
Yeah.
Also, he seems to take Gavilar's death very hard. It seems like that really fuels his paranoia a bit.
Well,
So-
certainly.
Yeah.
I would almost say that maybe Elhokar looked up to Gavilar so much that he was just in shock that it's like, oh, now's the time I have to be king? Oh, good. Ugh. Right?
Yeah.
And then he may have felt, oh, but I still had so much to learn, right?
Yeah.
From this person, and now I can't do that. And so that just maybe fuels all these inferior feelings, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yes.
Yasna.
Yasna.
Sorry.
There you go. You got it.
This is a preview
seems
for the
to-
pronunciation podcast where Matt continually says Jasna.
Continually. So Yasna seems to really also like Elhokar. We have that scene. I think the evidence of affection I saw was in that scene after his funeral when she's reading The Way of Kings.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of searching. And part of it's, Yasna wants to find the truth. And Gavilar left that note for her.
Yeah.
That she read, right? Or Seth did technically, but
Yeah.
she thinks Gavilar did, and also thinks Gavilar could secretly write, which,
Wouldn't
is surprising
surprise
to her.
me. But
Yeah. But she definitely seems to have some, like, she's in deep mourning, so it does seem like she loves her father.
Mhm.
I feel
At least-
like that the fact that Gavilar is not a brute and he is a reflective person. I feel like their relationship could have been pretty good, that they could maybe connect with that. But there's also a lot of things about Yasna's past that, like,
Yes.
I don't know. I don't really know how that's gonna work until we see that on screen.
Yeah. Oathbringer definitely brought in a pretty clear implication that Yasna was treated for insanity during her
Yes.
childhood. And we do see Shallan visit like an insane asylum in Words of Radiance, and it's really bad to go see Talm.
Yeah. Well, that's
Being kept in a dark room and
And that's what happened with Yasna.
So yeah, it seems, and it does seem like it was her family and probably her father who locked her away.
So maybe that could be a thing where, I mean, I'm just spitballing, right? But maybe Yasna later in her life maybe had a better relationship with Gavilar than younger
as a
in
child.
life.
Yeah.
Right.
The other thing that I'm kind of concerned about their relationship, or gives me some doubts, is Gavilar's desire to marry her to Amaram.
Yeah.
Because we know from Yasna's reaction to Amaram that she really, really hates him. But apparently her dad wanted them to be together. So I think there might be something going on there as well.
Yeah. I think that seemed to me to be more of the sort of political favor for a powerful ally in your organization that, oh, hey, you could marry my daughter who's the princess of Alethkar. And Yasna's like, actually, no, it's not going to
I'm
happen.
independent. I'm not interested.
No.
And now that I hear more about Amram, I'm really not interested.
Exactly.
I don't think she'd be interested in whoever Gavilar picked, but especially not Amram.
She'd have killed him.
But it does kind of, even just at its base level, represent a misunderstanding of Yasna's character, that, like, Gavilar thinking he could, like, choose a partner for her.
Mm-hmm.
That is certainly true. You're not wrong.
Yeah.
Any other Gavilar thoughts? Shannon, you got any other thoughts?
I don't like him.
You don't like Gavilar? Yeah, okay, yeah. I mean,
that's what I got. That's
Yeah.
I mean, his plan overall is not good. So I mean, yeah. But
it's hard to see the man, like, and think of his moral character without acknowledging that. And it's sort of like, it's so dumb. It's so mean-spirited is the wrong word. Like, it's so almost like a malevolent way to get like it's for the greater good. Just I can't see the good of him like beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's really hard for me to see him clearly. I mean, I think I do see him clearly, but for what the information that we have about him right now. But I think we're going to get a lot more reveals about him in the future.
Yeah. Next two prologues for sure, right? Like they've
I mean, like, they're all about his death. They're all about, like, uncovering a little bit more of that part of the Kholin family. So I'm excited to see.
Yeah, just this conversation has made me even more excited for Yasna flashbacks. Because realizing that there is a deliberate hole that Brandon hasn't really talked about on, like, how good was Gavilar and Navani's relationship, right? And how good was any of that? And how good was his relationship with his kids? There's a hole there, and I would hope that that would be filled with those flashbacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do we want to move on to Navani then? Next?
Yeah.
We can probably go quickly, because we've talked a little bit about
but
that's what I think. If we keep it in the families, like the two family units, that might be faster, just because we'll...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We should. Yeah,
I like
because
that.
we're talking about relationships, but also, you know, the characters, and this is obviously gonna connect, you know, there.
Yeah.
But Navani is very interesting. She's a great character. In
a fan favorite too, like a lot of people.
Yeah,
not a Kholin by birth.
No,
but a Kholin by marriage twice over.
Twice over. Yes. We don't really know a lot of, like, we have no idea how, like, Navani met Gavilar and Dalinar really at all,
or like who, like, her family was.
We have no idea.
Nothing.
Right? Like that's another, like, big hole.
She is Kholin all the way now.
Like, you'd assume that she is from a fairly high-ranking family, like probably at least somewhat related to one of the other high princes. Because
you assume that, like, she was important enough to be on their radar already, like, in their social circles. Like, it doesn't seem important or relevant to Dalinar, at least. It's just kind of natural that she would be the kind of woman that they would be ready to marry.
Yeah.
And one thing to point out, the books mentioned that, at least in OB, I think, Oathbringer, that Dalinar and Gavilar, when they started, I think were around the 4th Dawn. Yes. Like, they worked they were a lesser branch of the Kholin family.
Yeah. Yeah, what about the other branches of the Kholins?
Not important. They're dead.
Guess not.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
They're dead.
Probably.
They're dead, right, yeah.
But I guess that is a possibility, that Navani could have been like a distant cousin of theirs from a more prominent branch that they partially used. Like, that happens in kind of climbs to power like Gavilar's, you know?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like Navani would be part of, like, another princedom, because I feel like that would have come up eventually at this stage.
Yeah, they would have said something about Very
much
related
sister.
to this other person.
Right.
Like the
So-
closest allies like they had like from the beginning was Sadius, and I feel
Yeah.
like her belonging to Sadius's princedom would have been pretty plot important at some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah,
Or
that would have been
even
really
in
fun.
passing.
Yeah.
Even in passing.
So I feel
Yeah,
like she
well, and
must have been in the Kholin area, right?
Mhm.
That
Because
prince.
even when Dalinar's like, oh, how are we going to get the princes on our side? He doesn't think, oh, I'll ask Navani's relatives.
No,
Like that's
yeah,
kind of an
so-
obvious.
She might have been a Kholin by birth. She might have always been a
Well,
Kholin.
I mean, there's lots of people in a Kholin princedom who are not like named Kholin,
Mhm.
right? Like, there's
She
a
might
lot
have
of people
been
there.
she might have been part of the the Kholin princedom, but like maybe a lesser family, but important enough that like, she was like right there with the other fourth dons.
Navani could have just been at that lower rank and, met Gavilar and Dalinar and saw where the winds were going and
Recognized
Hey,
that they were on their way up, and that
Yeah.
yeah.
and so her parents don't really matter because, well, now they're in charge.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So
And
that's-
she
One-
was right.
she was
Yeah.
right.
Or this is all headcanon. We don't know if that's what happened, but
No, and
yeah.
and that's one of those things. Like, this is a whole. Like, I don't really know, like, Navani pre Gavilar, like, at all. We have
Yeah.
no idea.
So we don't know if this is going to be part of like if this is part of the intentional gap or if this was just something that just happens not to be relevant. But
Mhm.
as part of this gap of information in that family, it's sort of like are we putting more importance into it? But at the same time, her background is such a mystery. It's like
It just seems weird, right?
Mhm.
it does seem weird. Yes.
we
Yeah.
do know that Dalinar introduced them, though.
Yes,
She knew
Ooh.
Dalinar before she knew Gavilar.
that's right.
Which is interesting.
I don't even know when we could get this information. Like, we can't really be.
Probably not
If we're
Yasna's
saying-
flashbacks.
No, it can't
She
be
wasn't
Yasna's
alive,
flashback,
so-
right? Like,
Unless
there's only
there's
so
a
much Yasna's flashback
flashback
can do.
with her mom telling her about how they met.
Maybe.
And then we'll get Navani's telling of it.
Oh, that's
via
true. Like,
Yasna's
yeah,
memories.
there are ways to do that.
Or we find out Yasna's super close to her maternal grandparents.
Yeah, something like that.
Sure, but
One thing
Yeah.
I will comment on with Navani, and also this kind of goes back to Gavilar a little bit, but is the relationship between the Kholins' first family and the Sadeas is really interesting because now you see Dalinar getting over this and being a better judge of character and being like, man, Toril and Ialai Sadeas are kind of like garbage. But like
Little bit.
they were like Navani and Gavilar's best couple friends, They met to play like
Yeah,
board
seriously.
games and plan how to take over the world. Like,
well,
so-
the board games were more of maps of Alethkar
Yeah.
and how
Yeah.
to.
That's
invade
how it
places.
happened. The whole invasion was
Yeah.
like one day a game of Risk got out of control, and they were like, "What if real life though?"
yeah.
What if we
Like, they're-
did that? Good idea.
They're drinking some wine, so it's like part of Navani, like we like her now, but like you were once best buds with Ialai, who we don't like now.
Yeah,
so,
and Ialai is like super awful.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
I wonder. I don't know if that's like more to do with like being a bad judge of character, and more to do with like they were actually like that back then.
Mhm, that's what I'm. Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
a character. It's a character change, not a moment of realization. It's sort of like
I agree. I think for Dalinar, it was a moment of realization. But I'm wondering for Gavilar and Navani if it was more... although Dalinar had a character change too. But
Mhm.
anyway.
But also it's the fact that Gavilar wasn't keeping them together anymore, and then it was like,
Yeah.
oh well, Toril can maybe go be king, and I'm like, yeah, that's perfectly in character. They schemed their way to the top and helped Gavilar, and now Gavilar's not around, so
Yeah.
Yeah,
Why not?
Pretty much.
especially with Dalinar, receding,
Going
like,
crazy.
the fact that that's all it took was like a couple years. No, of like him being like that, a year, and they were already like, let's pick on Dalinar, is crazy to me, based on what they knew Dalinar was like on the battlefield.
That's
sort of
true.
like-
No.
That is so crazy to me that they would dare, but that's because of
Well-
Oathbringer flashbacks.
Yeah, right. Like it wasn't just it wasn't ever since the second Battle of the Rift, like, Dalinar was not the same.
That's
Like,
true, too.
So, like, that was it was a lot longer than the years since Gavilar's assassination, right? In my opinion.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. No, I was
So it's
thinking
like,
about like the
you know.
year. I was thinking about the year since he went to the cultivation. What's her name?
Yeah, the Night
Watcher.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. But I mean, that's still, like, them all on the Shattered Plains. Like, that's 6 years. Like, that's kind of... Marriages have dissolved faster. Friendships have definitely dissolved faster than that, right? Like, that's 6 years is a pretty long time, and that was even really longer.
Yeah,
And
and
with Gavilar, yeah.
in Alethi terms, Dalinar has definitely been showing lots of signs of, like, being past his prime, losing his touch.
Yeah.
He's not winning the plateau runs. He's got all these weird
Yeah.
rules.
He's not going on the plateau run.
Yeah, he's got, like, weird visions that are happening during high storms, and everyone's like, oh, Dalinar's on his way out. Time to strike.
Yeah, so, I mean,
it still
makes
just
sense.
seems so crazy to me. But that's
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
that's
but
an
that's
aside.
also because Dalinar, we get so many Dalinar flashbacks, but it's like, I feel like we could have had so many more, right? Like, there's
Yeah.
I
so...
know. Yes.
Like, there's so much that we didn't get, and it's a testament to Brandon that, like, he probably thought of all of these flashbacks.
Yeah.
He's like, these
had a
are the
plan.
ones we need for the arc for this book, and
And
that's what we're
everything
gonna
else-
put in.
Everything else we can infer, and I feel like
Yeah.
Brennan is trusting us to infer a lot of things just because he cannot physically put
The
all
books
these
are
scenes
too
into-
long.
the books
Tor
are
will
too
kill
long
him.
already. Yeah,
Yeah.
Peter will kill him. But also just, I'm just like, I wonder, like the gaps with like with the Gavilar Navani history, like with the Sadiuses, and it's sort of like, I wonder how much of it are we supposed to infer, and how much are is a secret to come later.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, because it's sort of like, this is so interesting. I want more detail, but maybe this is it. Maybe this is
Yeah.
like, we're just supposed to be inferring.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or it's just, you know what? Their private life is a closed book. And we're not gonna, like, it's just one of those mysteries. Because the people we see, they are all fairly private people to differing degrees, right? Like, they kind of
Alethi
all
are
keep...
pretty private.
Yeah.
Alethi
Yeah.
are pretty private people.
Yeah,
That's true.
Alethi are
That's
pretty...
true.
But, like, Navani kind of puts herself out there, I guess, but she also can play her cards close to her chest when she wants to. Yasna
Yeah.
is, like, queen of secrets. Elhokar,
Jeez.
kind of,
Mhm.
so...
Well,
Yeah.
can I talk about that one word of Brandon that we have? So at this word of Brandon, Mrs. Joffwu asks about the adult relationship between Yasna and Elhokar. So Brandon goes, as adults, Mrs. Joffwu goes, like, were they affectionate? And Brandon says, yes, I would say they were affectionate, not maybe as much as some other siblings, like with Renarin and Adolin. With Yasna and Elhokar, it is almost like there's definitely some affection, but there's almost more of an allegiance.
Mhm.
They're both dealing with certain pressures upon them. Their lives are very much consumed by the pressures, and they had that in common. So I paraphrase that. That wasn't verbatim, but
Right.
in that sort of idea, that almost feels like how it is for that whole family.
Mhm.
Like, there is
Yeah.
there is some affection there, but they do kind of see each other more as allies than as friends.
And you
in
kind of
like
wonder, with that allegiance with Elhokar and Yasna, whether part of that is because of, did they feel alone because their parents were busy plotting? How much parental guidance
maybe-
were they getting?
True.
Or maybe that's even just how they saw their parents interact.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
this is
True.
what love looks like, or something,
True.
Like, this is
Yeah.
Very true.
this is how a family is, or this is how a family that is like the king of the whole nation is supposed to act.
And then they just, like, glance across and it's like, well, at least we're not Dalinar's kids.
It's like, man, Uncle Dalinar is...
Yikes.
yeah.
He's in the liquor again. Oh no.
Yeah, okay. Could be worse. Oh, now Gavilar's dead. Now we're sad. Now we're mourning.
Yeah,
But
so
not
it's
the
sort of
bands.
like,
That's a different series.
So maybe part of like this gap that we're seeing in that family, maybe it's also less of a gap and more of they were actually not that affectionate as a family. And like
Yeah.
maybe they just didn't have like that strong of a relationship. Like we see lots of, like, for example, Adolin and Renarin, but that's because like they have a very close relationship. And so maybe that's what this gap is trying to convey to us, that they just weren't actually that close. They weren't.
Yeah, the Gavilar, Navani, Yasna, Elhokar family, I think definitely seems to have more darkness and more questions surrounding it than, even though you would expect that in Dalinar's family because he was so awful. But
Yeah.
I think, I think Evie probably helped with that somewhat. But it is interesting looking at kind of the family dynamics between Yasna and Elhokar and their mom and dad. Yeah, one thing I'd like to say about Navani's relationships with her children, though, that bothered me in Oathbringer is in Way of Kings, we see her go into deep mourning for Yasna. Like, she doesn't want to talk about Yasna. She doesn't want to think about her being dead.
Words of Radiance.
Words of Radiance, sorry.
Yeah.
She's just shuts down completely, like this very deep mourning. Elhokar dies. We don't know what happened to her grandson. She's kind of just okay. Or at least we don't really see her. Like, and part of that might be because she processed that when she was mourning Yasna, and maybe she's more resilient and able to deal with this. But I don't know. For me, losing your kind of son and grandson, I don't know. I kind of wanted to see more of an emotional reaction from Navani there, especially after everything that happened with Yasna's supposed death.
I feel like this is just another one of those things. I was like, man, I wish I wasn't a time jump so we could see, characters process things, right? But Navani was dealing with a lot of political stuff in part 4 of Oathbringer.
And Dalinar falling apart, too.
And Dalinar falling apart. And so I think she's just not thinking that they're dead yet, right?
And also because she got Yasna back was also a huge emotional thing.
Yeah.
So there was that emotional upset. It was positive, but it was still an emotional upset of, like, her dead daughter just walked in totally fine without a scratch. Like, you have to wonder if, like, maybe she doesn't really believe that they're dead.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this goes hand in hand with the fact that we haven't seen Navani and Elhokar have an interaction in all 3 books.
Yes.
She was there when he abdicated.
That's true.
To Dalinar, air quotes.
Yeah, it's always Dalinar.
But Dalinar was the fix. The other thing I was thinking, though, it's possible that Navani regretted how long she was in mourning for Yasna. Like, even before she realized Yasna was alive, there was that whole idea of, like, Shallan was really working on something important and really wanted Navani's help. And I wonder if Navani was like, I was foolish to have pushed her away because I was in mourning. Right. I just need to process. I did the whole mourning thing for my child. And it was a bad idea last time.
It was like, I can't let myself go again because when I did it last time, I almost caused the end of the world because I missed out on this thing Shallan was working on.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. So I don't want to make too many excuses because I also feel the frustration of this lack of relationship between Navani and Elhokar, but
true.
Yeah, I mean, like, we can find ways in text to kind of justify it, but
I'm sure it's also a gender thing, like just how the culture is set up. I think it's natural for mothers and daughters to be closer than fathers and sons to be closer than crossways.
Yeah, I think so.
Because like I'd say that's probably the more typical dynamic. Although I'd argue that Yasna seems closer to Gavilar than to Navani, since they seem to have some mother-daughter tension as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe we should talk about that. Let's talk about that. That's a great segue. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
Yasna's a very headstrong person, right?
I feel like Navani wanted someone to dote on, and Yasna did not want to be doted on.
And I think also Navani's pretty smart in her own right. I think she would have liked a child she could teach. And Yasna is not teachable. Like, we can agree on that, right? Like,
not really, no. Yeah.
She's someone who learns for herself.
I don't know if I agree on the term unteachable. I think
Okay.
She would just rather learn by herself, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's more independent because, like, to me, if being unteachable is not being able to admit that you're wrong, and Yasna can, you know, like if you can prove to Yasna that like she's made a mistake, then she'll accept that, which I find very admirable about her. But in my view, like that's what teachable means. So I think she would also probably be. She would probably have the proof of her rightness before she got into it with Navani.
The other thing is the whole potential treatment for insanity thing probably put a lot of distance between Yasna and the rest of her family, and I'm guessing that's what made her so independent. Is
well, that's true.
I can't trust anyone else. I'm just going to be on my own. I'm gonna. She will protect them, but she definitely does not depend on them for anything.
Yep, I agree.
Oh, I guess we talked a little bit about Yasna being like her like that kind of difficult dynamic with Navani, and I guess just going the other way in Oathbringer, we see a little bit of Yasna's kind of it's almost like annoyance with her mother. Like I kind of wonder if Navani is someone who controls things, and Yasna is kind of resistant to that.
Potentially.
I could kind of see that.
Yeah. Like, because we see... Yeah.
One of the things, at the end of Words of Radiance, when Navani finally starts opening up to Shallan, you almost get a sense that it's a connection to Yasna that she's never really had before. Even though she thinks Yasna's dead, suddenly she's getting to, like, work on her scholarly projects and things like that.
Yeah,
Yasna really never let her in on before.
That you're right. I think I mentioned that maybe they had a good relationship because of that, but no, you're right. They didn't have that relationship at all.
It's difficult.
You're
well,
right.
and also although they're both intellectual and into study, like Navani has an engineering mind, and Yasna is a historian and a philosopher, right? So their kind of interests are quite varied.
I was just going to say, like, even like the way they think about things, like the reasons why an engineer is interested in something is very different than the reason a historian is interested in something.
Correct.
Like, if you look just at their reaction to Irithiru, like the way they were reacting to it, the way they studied it, what they were trying to get out of understanding Irithiru was totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Navani
right.
wants to know how it works. She wants to reproduce it. She wants to understand how they did things way back when. And Yasna is not so interested in like they're trying to reproduce it. She wants to know. She wants she has a very delineated list of answers that she needs. She has a list of questions she wants answered.
Yes.
Yep.
For sure. Engineers and say math physics people. There's a difference. There's a difference.
Yep.
Any other Navani stuff? Obviously, we're gonna talk. Splitting these up, we're going to talk more about Navani and relationships with other characters.
Sure.
When we talk a lot more about Dalinar,
specifically Dalinar. Yeah.
So any other Navani stuff?
I don't think so.
Hey guys, Eric here. This podcast ended up being over 2 hours long, and I'm gonna cut this one here. After we talked about Gavilar and Navani, we will talk about Elhokar, Yasna, and Aesidon next time. And even after that, there's gonna be more episodes with Dalinar. Turns out, we blabbed about the Kholins a lot. So that's where we're gonna be there. Before we go, though, I just wanted to put in post-production as I'm editing that there's one other piece of news that on Brandon's store, they're having a fall sale, and there are special fancy foil maps of Rosharan that when you move them, they shine. They're really, really cool, and there's only going to be 1,000 of them. which is probably a lot for our fandom, but once they're gone, they're gone. And so I wanted to let you guys know now, and I'll put the link in the description for those. And we will see you next time. Come to 17shard.com for all your news, discussion, and fun. Come to our Discord, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, YouTube, leave us a review on iTunes, and we will definitely see you next time. Bye! Caw!